Joined by a gentleman, I look up to him, I call him Uncle. Hey, Uncle Dalton. Ladies and gentlemen, and all my fellow creators, he goes a long way. Now, when I talk about a long way, I want to actually read his bio. It says here, Mr. Dalton, let me quickly go. Oh, Uncle Dalton, you have a very long bio.
Call me cousin.
Okay, Uncle Cousin.
Not Uncle Cousin. Just
No, but the uncle must be there. The uncle must be there. No, I'm kidding. Now, Uncle Dalton has accomplished a lot. You see, the uncle just comes naturally. Dalton Ashikoto is an accomplished actor and a producer. He's got extensive experience in film, television, as well. Notable productions he's worked on are productions such as The Edge, African Dishes with a Twist, and Once Upon a Nomad for Al Jazeera. His acting credits span from films like Kite, Katutura, as well as roles in Rhythm City, and of course the very famous one, Generations, The Legacy. He's also studied at the New York Film Academy, and he continues to be a notable name within the Namibia creative and film industry. Let's give Mr. Dalton Ashikoto a round of applause.
Thank you.
Mr. Dalton, we're just going to dive into it. You know, we're having a conversation. Today's about a masterclass. You have notably been so influential when it comes to the acting scene and also set the premise of representing Namibia. When did it all start for you, and when did that change just come where you realized, but me wanting to do this, and that turning point to, I'm going to put the work into creating this as a creative space for myself?
Adriana, thanks for making the time. I think essentially what acting is about storytelling, right? I think storytelling is part of the human experience. That's something we need. It's through storytelling that we learn, that we carry on cultures, that we learn to survive. Because without the stories, you don't learn about other people's experiences, and those are the tools that you need to survive in this world. So being an actor, you're basically just a tool of those storytelling. So I have no idea where this came from, but when I think about it, you know, some of us grew up in those days when we didn't have televisions at home. Okay, now you can call me Anka.
I can attest to it.
So you remember your aunties and the mothers, you know, they used to sit around drinking their katafels and tell stories. So all those aunties, when they sit there and tell their stories, I think it all, you know, as a young person, you sit there listening to their stories. They send you around, go buy this Fanta, go buy this Coca-Cola, this tafel, and you listen to their stories. So it you know, you start emulating them, and that, I think, that's where it started. My mother was a very good storyteller. She would sit around with all her friends and tell them stories. And after that, I became that kid that, you know, when the teacher goes out of class, I'm the one that goes in front of the class and you know, tell stories. But didn't make much of it. Went to college, studied something else completely. On a particular day, we went to an audition with a friend, and for a theater piece. I wasn't even going to audition. Then they asked me to, you know, just try out. Then I got the part, actually got the main part. I was like, what? Okay, I enjoyed it. So I think that's where the bug caught me. And, you know, fast forward, came back home. We started doing a couple of plays. We had a theater company, Lazarus Jacobs, Vixen, Angula, that whole crew. We did some really good shows. We traveled throughout Namibia. Some of the shows we did were a Martin Luther King play. We did a Toivo play. We traveled throughout the whole of Namibia. And then after that, I did a lot of stuff with NBC on a freelance basis. Penduka, we did Penduka. We started Penduka. I don't know if you know Penduka.
No, I do.
You know,
Every Friday.
I think you only know Watagwan.
No. No, we know Penduka.
Okay, so we started Penduka. We did a lot of naming. We did a couple of feature films with Cecil Miller, some series, those Once Upon a Time, all those. Did a whole lot of stuff on NBC. Then after that, fast forward, you know, did a lot of workshops and courses in LA, Miami, etc. Started doing a lot of work in SA, commercials, TV productions, series, a couple of famous ones, etc. And then so we keep moving from.
I love the fact that, with the creatives, it's always like, okay, cool, I've done that, fast forward, I've done that, fast forward, because we always don't take credit for the work that we've done, because realizing that even a theater play takes so much work, because even during a theater play, you're like, but why am I doing this to myself? I'm not getting paid enough. Then I need to do intensive characterization. And then we perform 2-3 days, 3 months of work that we've put into this work is just done within 3 days. Take us through a journey of how you prepare for a role. For example, a theater play, that very first theater play you've done. How do you get into extensively saying, but I'm delving away from being Dalton and jumping into this character?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much difference preparing for a role for theater or television, but there are certain steps that you could look at. I think what's the first thing you do when you get a script? You do what they do, a script analysis, where you look at your script and you read it and you read it and you read it. If you look at the A-list actors, when they get a script, they read that script up to 300-400 times just to try and understand the nuances, picking up those kind of small aspects of the script, understanding the script. So the first thing you do is your script analysis, and then from there you do your character analysis, trying to understand who the character is. Because remember, art imitates life, so all of these characters are basically, derived from some sort of living beings. So you try and understand your character. But what that means is, who's your character? Where does he come from? Where did he go to school? What are his childhood memories, his childhood traumas? Because all of those, will drive how you play the character. If the character, for example, went to school in America, you could have a slight twang, hiding kind of thing.
The American accent.
You know what I mean? So all of that is all part of character, characterization. Some scripts will have it, some won't have it. So if your script doesn't have it, you have to find it, because that's what adds the color to your performance. And it's the smallest things. If you look at some of the A-list actors, you look at them and like, well, there's something interesting about their performance. I'll give you an example of Denzel, one of my favorite actors, in The Equalizer. Have you noticed when he sits on the table, for example, he'll fold napkins and then he'll put cutleries in a specific way. What does that mean? So he decided when he was doing his character, building his character, he decided his character has OCD, for example. So what that means is then he will add those flavors to that. So those are all part of your backstories, basically adding colors to your character. The other thing is then to look at what are your internal conflicts, or what are your conflicts? Because at the end of the day, most of stories or most of life has to do with conflicts. We're all going through conflict every time. And when you have a script, usually it will have 3 aspects: your beginning, your middle, and your end. And your middle is usually where the conflict, that's where the juice is of the performance. Now, you have to now look at where's the conflict. And then you have to divide it into, there's always an internal conflict, there's an external conflict. Now, the internal conflict is the conflict within yourself. Because, say, for example, your objective of the character is to get a job. So what is this conflict that hinders the person to get the job? It could be he's insecure, or those are internal conflicts. How does he overcome that? So understanding what your character's internal conflicts are helps you to bring it out. Because only if you understand that he's insecure, you'll be able to bring that out. So that adds color to your performance. External conflicts could be that guy that also wants your job. So he is fighting you, he's bad-mouthing you. How do you deal with that? So understanding all your conflicts. Also, then how do you... One of the most important things is the character's wants and needs. Because if you look at all films, this character is going through the normal life. Something happened. Now he wants something. Now he's running after something. Now there's conflicts, obstacles, and he's running. So you need to understand what your character's objective is. What does he want? Because only then, and then you focus all your energy on what the character wants, and then in between you have actions that you have to implement to get to your character. So you have to understand. So when you read that script 200 times, you're actually making notes. Like, oh, in this scene, he wants this. So what are the small pieces that he's going through to get there? So you make all of those analyses, and then you play them. Because remember, for example, when you're shooting a film, you don't shoot it all of it.
Yeah.
One day you shoot one scene in the middle, so you're gonna know where your character is emotionally at that particular time. So, and play it accordingly. So you're gonna know where he is in his wants as well. So you break it down also in that, basing on that. And then eventually you need to do a lot of rehearsals. At the end of the day, that's why they say playing a character. When you're playing a character, it means you have to play it until you get the sense of, what feels right. I mean, I'm not sure most of you have looked at kids playing. That's the most natural state of human beings. And I think as we grow older, we forget to play. But I love watching kids playing because they're just so creative that they play the card they're doing a car here on top, and then they drive it here, and then the wall. So that's what you should do.
Imagination.
The imagination. So that's what you should do. Then rehearse, and you play until you feel what's natural. But then the most important thing is, as an actor, you could have the talent, but you must have the skill. The talent is the one that gets you in the door, but the skills are the one that sustain you. So you gotta learn all the time. Even the A-list actors, they are on workshops all the time. You can never know enough. So there are a few techniques that you can learn. I'm just gonna run through them a little bit. For example, you can look at method acting. Method acting has to do with where you go through your past emotional memories to implement them in a role you're playing. And this is a technique that you can mostly use when your role is very emotionally challenging. So it could be an example of you going through your role. You lost something in your role. So to bring out that emotion, you could tap into something that happened at the time you lost your cat, for example, and bring that back. So that's method acting. Guys like Marlon Brando, those are some of the tools they use. So you have other tools like your Meissner technique, which is spontaneous reaction. That's probably one of my favorite. This one, you forget about everything. All you do is you focus on the other actors and you react.
Would one that say that's also sort of improv, right?
Yeah, that's another technique. Now, improv, comedians use that a lot because improv teaches you how to say yes to everything. It teaches you how to act on your feet. Most of the comedians do practice improv because they have to be on their feet, because somebody will throw something at you and the audience, you have to go with it. But as actors, those are techniques you can learn because they also, some of the most beautiful scenes in film came from improv. I don't know if you've seen the Django Unchained with Leonardo, right?
Yes, I have.
There's this scene where he get cut. He get a cut, right? He actually got cut, like that's blood. Because he probably practices improv, he didn't stop. He just continues. Because with improv, it teaches you to just say yes to everything. And that was probably one of the best scenes in that show. You could look at some of the techniques like actioning. Actioning is where, that's also some technique I really like, where you break down your scenes in main objective and sub-objectives. So you decide, okay, this guy wants the job, that's his objective. So what does he need? Specific actions. So all of the lines, you break them down into verbs, and then you play the verb. whatever the action is, you play that to get to the action. So so you actually go through the script and you write the verbs or what needs to be done, and then you have your what is your Stanislavski methods, where you don't use your real emotions, you can use imaginary emotions. So you get a script, you create an imaginary scenario. How will my character act, in this instance? So those are some of the methods that are out there, but they take time to learn. And you gotta attend courses, you gotta attend workshops. I do some workshops now and then. And people go to school for these things, 4 years to learn some of these techniques to really get them, because it's practice, 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 practice until it gets into your system. So acting has to do not just with natural talent, but also skill. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have that skill, you'll not be able to dive into those characters. So you have to find that balance. Even if you don't have the natural talent and you learn the skill, it's a skill like anything else.
I love how you contrast both, that you, at least if you've got the talent, you need to have the skills, which is very important. So he whispered and he said that everybody that's attended, he's going to make sure that he's going to send those skills through to us and make sure that after the workshop, we all have that on email, right?
No, I can send you a few things, no problem, but you have to practice. You must actually come to my workshop. So we're supposed to do a workshop together, me and you. So we should do another one.
After this.
No, like a proper one. You need like
definitely.
just to get the basic, you need like a whole week. But we can do a 2-day workshop, and even do, the last one I did was on actioning. So what you can do on different stuff. But it's nice to know all of the techniques, because each role can demand, if you're playing an emotionally charged role,
right.
You could use method acting, for example. If you're using this, you can use that. So, you can use, it's good to know all of them, and just be able to play around with them where it's needed.
Right. So I want to dive into our next question, because you've got the skills, you've got the talent. Now, how do actors prepare for a role when they audition? Because we live in a time where, I think post-COVID, actors are now exposed to self-tapes. And also, being our biggest script, you now sit in front of a camera, you also directing yourself, you've got a script, preparing for a role. How do you as an actor, and maybe possible, notable points that you can say, okay, these are a few nuggets to prepare for either a self-tape or a physical audition? And maybe with that said, how do directors identify? Because I think there's a bigger challenge with actors always saying, but you know what, there was a role that Vixen Hangula just casted for, and I auditioned for it because it said colored. But now I show up and it just said colored between the ages of 30. I didn't get the role, and I have a personal vendetta against Vixen, but not realizing, but I was not the specific character fit for the role. How do we confidently say, but even if I don't get it, it's also okay? I know it's a twofold question.
No problem. I mean, auditions are very different from performing, even the way you prepare for auditions, because you don't even get the whole script, you get like a little piece. So you have no context, you have no backstory, you don't understand the character where it is. So you have to make up most of it. And because the directors don't expect you to play the character accordingly, but you take that, learn the lines as much as you can, because that helps, gives you a bit of confidence. Once you learn the lines, you are able then to go and say, and just commit to a specific thing, and then you do it. Now, what they usually look for in auditions, you will see that when you do one part, they will say, try it this way and try it that way. What they're trying to do is they're trying to see how adaptable you are to direction. That is the most thing they look for in auditions. So always listen to the director when he gives you notes to do this, because at the end of the day, they want to know, if I'm working with this guy and I give him instructions, he won't waste my time, he'll get it. So that's the most important thing, is to do your director's direction, to implement it. Some of it is, I like reading people's stories, like Leonardo, in his start, he doesn't do auditions anymore. This guy just gets scripts. So in his earlier years, he will say, the only way that I could get my roles. Whatever I do, I do something out of the ordinary for them to remember me. Like he'll do some crazy stuff. He'll just jump on the table or whatever. So they'll always remember him. I think the other thing that you also need to remember is if you don't get the part, it doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means you're not the right person for the part. So what you need to do is always just go in, do your best. Because most of the time, if you do your best, they will remember you for a next role or for another role. My personal experience when I did the auditions for Generations, the part I auditioned for is not the one I got. I did my thing. They're like, okay, they don't fit for this role, but I think we have something else. So it's about just giving your best, whatever you have. And once you do your auditions, go home, don't think about it, don't beat yourself about it. Just like if they call, they call. If they don't call, they don't call. But if you have given it your best, even if they don't call you for a next one, the next time they have an audition, they remember you, oh, this guy. But they'll keep finding something for you. So when auditions are good. Let's go to as many auditions, do your best. They will give you the role or they give you another role. But it's never that you're not good enough. It's just that wasn't the part for you, because each part they have a specific vision for the person. So if you have that in mind, you should be okay. Yeah.
No, I love that. It's like going for an interview. You might not be the one that gets the job. Yeah. Resources in Namibia are always limited. It's not that we always have productions available, always have theater plays. We've also seen that post-COVID theater has literally been shut. We don't have enough theater plays as well. But looking at the space and the time that we're in, how do you stay motivated as an actor? How do you stay motivated to say, but at least if I'm not able to perform, I'm able to enhance a skill through either venturing into being behind the scenes, for example, directing, casting, because you've got a vast repertoire with that inclusive of South Africa.
Yeah. I mean, Namibia, yeah, unfortunately, we are not as many. Okay, I'm lucky enough I've been able to work outside the country. But not everybody might have the opportunity. But there are opportunities in the sense that we all have this thing that when I do a movie, I need 5 million to do a movie. But with technology these days, with a small phone, you can do 1 minute, 2 minutes. There's TikTok now. There's Instagram, whatever. You can create stories. Those are all part of creating content. So the platforms are there. So you're not even limited to Namibia anymore. Your audience can be anywhere else. So that's the beauty about technology. So I think the mindset should just change, that I must wait for Adriana to make a movie so I can audition. Otherwise, there's nothing happening in Namibia. No, I've seen now, like a lot of young people on TikTok and stuff, they're doing some really good stuff. I'm like, next time I have a movie, I'm just going to call this guy, because, there's all part of India, and they're making money out of this stuff. So the opportunities are there. Just do it. And like you say, now you can create your own content. You can be your own producer. It can be your own director. It can be your own distributor. So the possibilities are endless. And you start somewhere. It's basically free stuff to start. Everybody's got a mobile phone. And the next thing leads to the next leads to the next. So I think the technology has taken away borders. So we're not restricted to, like, it's a small country. We can do, if you have the passion, create 2 hours a day, create content, go in the street, record, whatever. You'll make it. And just, there's so much stuff on YouTube, for example. How do you teach yourself from your voice to all of that stuff? You go on YouTube, there's always somebody teaching you something. You take a little moment. But if you really want to be in the creative, in this space, you have to keep practicing. You have to keep doing something, even every day. I'm guilty of that. I don't do much anymore of that. Transitioning more into producing. But before, I will do something every day for 2 hours. It being voice or producing or writing a script or reading a script or something. Just keep doing something.
Enhance that skill continuously.
It's a skill, yeah.
Now we're going to open up the floor for questions. So can we just get the roaming mic ready? As we're getting that ready, I'll just reiterate that if you have a question, just raise your hand, rise and ask, and also tell us where you're from. Before we get into the questions, should actors think of themselves as an entity, as a business? Yesterday in conversation, we also heard that you just spoke about, yes, we are a small country, but how do actors then still do all of it, yet also think of themselves as a business, then still go to auditions? Because I think as an actor, you've got so much to do. You need to think of yourself as a business, you need to show up, you need to go to the awards, you need to network, and there's always a list of endless. So do you need to think of yourself as a business, yet also the talent, yet also be visible in a director's face to say, hey, when are we working together, or when are we casting, or... Because now you've seen actors venture into being directors, being scriptwriters, being director of photographies, the way they, find a space. Or is it that we need to get into the space and be multifaceted?
Yeah, okay, the different scenarios. I'm giving you the extreme now. For example, the A-list actors. They're actors, but they have a lot of people taking care of their business. They have an agent, they have a manager, they have a guy that just do the hair, the publicist, that do the deal structure, that take care of business. And they focus only on the art, on the acting. Now, unfortunately, if you're not a professional actor, for example, you might not be able to afford all these services. So you gotta be a jack of all trades, but get the basics right. Get an agent, for example. That's the agent is the one that will work for you, find you roles, because you can't be running around finding roles, because they get a cut. You don't have to pay them even. They get a cut from every deal that you get. So the basic one, at least get an agent that works for you. After that, you can graduate and get a manager. The manager is the one that sort of creates your vision, know where you want to go, and collaborate and do the business part of things. So it's like any other business. Short answer is yes, it is a business, can be a business. And if you want to progress to the next thing, you have to have the team around. Just like any other business, you're either a sole entrepreneur, and you'll be running around, you're the driver, you're the cleaner, you're the CEO, you're the toilet cleaner, you're the whatever it is, but you won't scale, right? Because you're still doing, you only have this much time. So it's the same thing with acting. If you look at it as a business, you can get a team around you, and they will be able to, move you to the next. So yeah.
Are we ready for those questions? Mr. Banana, how are you? Well, thank you, Mr. Philander. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to clarify. I want to hear from you to talk to each other. I thought it was meant for these people. So is it part of the interview that you do now?
That's part of the interview. Yeah.
There's some confusion. Are you talking about stage performances, or are you talking about movies? Because there's confusion here. What I have sit and listened to you guys now. Just clarify that to me.
So we're highlighting on both factors, which is film and theater.
Is that a fact? Because there's still some confusion, but I'll elaborate later on.
Okay.
As a playwright of substance, okay? But not now.
Thank you, Mr.
Give
Philander.
these people a chance. I'd like to hear their views.
Thank you, Mr. Philander.
Good morning. I just want to say something from my own experience when it comes to acting. I think acting is a medium for anything. If you stand in front of people, it's not just for movies. Now we are limiting acting just for movie. Even when I was playing soccer, I used to bring in ingredients of acting to make it more interesting for the fans. Because nowadays soccer is very dry and boring because they left out that acting part. They are just moving for instruction from a coach. And I also use acting into preaching. I become a preacher. So my stage presence, if I'm preaching in the church, I use that. And it draws people not to sleep even in the church because I'm bringing in those ingredients of acting. So it's not only for camera's sake and movies, no. Acting is how you do it, how you bring it out, as you were saying. It is insight. Yeah, it's a skill. Even politicians, if I become a politician, I will get voters, because if I put in those ingredients of acting on the people when I'm at the rally, I will kill it. Because, and they don't have it, even the politicians, they don't have it, because they are not of that nature. So acting is not only for movies, guys. Don't limit it. It's for many things. Even teachers. If I'm also a teacher, I was a lecturer at the College of Faith. I also use that to teach kids how to play a guitar. Then I start to do my acting, but I'm in a class. So they get interested. Oh, I can. So you have to bring it in, because if you make it so dry, it won't be attractive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Banana.
Just to add on that, Banana. So earlier we were saying acting is about storytelling. So politicians tell stories, teachers tell stories. So the other element, what you're referring to, is more adding colors to your performance, because that's charisma. That's what grabs people, when you add color to your storytelling. But we agree, what we're saying is acting is not limited to film. It's not limited to theater. It's a form of telling stories. It could be, my preacher is a good actor because he's telling stories. The politicians are good actors. They tell stories. It's all about telling stories at the end of the day. Film, theater, those are just mediums.
It's convincing. Even when you are acting, you try to convince. Are you really serious with what you are doing? You convince through that acting. You bring it out from your heart by telling that story. Sometimes you can tell a story, but it's dry.
Yeah.
You can't convince her. But if you put those other ingredients, which are
adding colors to that.
Yes.
Mr. Banana, can we just then have the mic roaming? Thank you so much for that contribution. And we'd love to have some of those skill sets also shared with the rest of the audience as well. Okay.
Thank you so much. My name is Leslie Shiwetha. Many might possibly know me as a TV presenter, but when it comes to the film industry, I call myself the late bloomer. I'm 43 years old. I've only had my first feature film out as a director just after 40, so that's very late. I'm sure that all the young people here. Oh, is this young? says Mr. Philander. Good to actually have you here. I wanted to be an actor for the longest time, since I was 14 years old. And I think when I was 15 years old, I acted in a stage play which was called Echoes from the Slums. It was written by Lucky Peters. I was a student at Hobabes at the time. And then I never really got the real role that I wanted. I remember we came to Windhoek and I was never really given the role. So I sort of like went backwards and I felt I was not good enough. But maybe my question here today is that last year, I got a call from a lady called Hilary Shimi. It's a pity she's not here. She's the director. So I was acting in an LGBTQI film called Uno and Harako. And I was casted for the role and I got the role. And I was like, how do I sort of like behave in front of the camera and all those things? But what was eating at me psychologically was during the takes, when you have to redo it over and over again. It's like at one point I felt like I've done good enough now, but then the director keep telling you that it's like, we need to do it one more time. How do you sort of like almost encourage yourself to just keep on doing it consistently? Because at one point I just felt like, I don't think I'm good enough. They should just get someone else. I think that is maybe the psychology that I want to sort of like master to an extent as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. We're going to get one more question before Dalton answers that. Here in the front.
Yes, good morning, sir. My name is Cleopas Andima. I'm from Windhoek. So I have a two-parted question, actually. So the first one is, you mentioned we should try to audition as often as possible, especially in the whole acting business. So when these people that conduct auditions, I'm just curious, what exactly do they look at when they're conducting these auditions? Do they look at the qualifications you have? What arts of college did you study from? Or what credits do you already have? Or do they look at the present skills that you show them at the time, or like how you portray the role that you are showing them at the time of that audition? And the second question is, as young Namibians, what would you advise a young aspiring actor who plans on venturing into the acting business, especially overseas and so forth? So that's all from me, sir.
Okay, we're going to have Dalton answer that. I think maybe just to add to that question, Dalton, because it's one of the questions that we have on our questions, which I want you to actually conclude. But a lot of actors tend to, get one role, get a theater role.
I can only take, my memory only take one
I'll
question.
repeat it to you. So it's almost like, as opposed to saying, but there are so many more local stories to tell. It's like, I now already see myself in Hollywood. When you still need to go a very, very long way to get there. Because, the basis for me as a performer is always theater. Yeah, but maybe you can just answer those.
Should we start with that other question? Let me try and remember. So you want to recap?
The question is, during the takes, you sort of feel like, but am I really good enough?
Yeah. I think the first thing you need to remember is, why are they repeating these shots? Because remember, film is shot in segments, and they need to make sure that whatever they've shot will also fit in the other segment and the other segment. So the more takes a director has, the more choices they have. So, because you could act the end of the film yesterday, and then you act the middle of the film tomorrow, and you're at different emotional stages, and something is just off because they don't flow. So first of all, you need to remember, it's not about you. It's the medium. They need to have as many takes. So take that burden off you. It's not about you. Is the medium. They need to have as many. The more choices they have, the better, right? So the editor can play around. They can take the best shots for you. It's actually good for you, because now they will take the best shots and put it in there. The other one is, how do you not lose your energy? Boils down to skills. Boils down to knowing technique. Once you know technique, you, in the back of your mind, you know that technique that you're doing. Because if you don't have the technique, you wouldn't know. Because, for example, actioning. If you know that technique, you know your emphasis on specific action words. That's all you're focusing on. So it's all technique. So that's very important to have technique. It's what will carry you throughout your performances. Because as much as film is tiring because you do repeat, theater is also tiring because you will the whole day you guys are rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing. You gotta have that energy all the time. But technique. Learn your technique. Some of these are on YouTube, some on internet. Read, practice, attend workshops, that kind of thing. That's the fuel for your performance.
The other question?
The other one is what do they look for?
What do they look for?
What do they look for? They're looking for the right person. They don't care about your qualifications, whether you have a degree or a PhD. That's not it. So number one, what we realize is the first thing, your looks probably is half of passing through. When you walk through the door, they're like, oh, this character is sort of going to fit in my film. But the rest of it is your performance, your skill set, how you adapting to the director's feedback. Because if you're looking for a colored guy from Rehoboth, and now here I show up, like I don't have the look, right? It's cut already. So if I show up like, I fit the part, 50% is there already. And then the next is have you prepared? Have you understood what they're looking for? Try and give them what they want, and listen to the directors and adapt. Because at the end of the day, it's a creative space. Nobody really knows what they want exactly. Sometimes you have to give them what they don't know. You give them different ranges. And especially when you give them ranges, they like it because they know, oh shit, I didn't think of that. This guy is good. He could give me something that I don't have. So play around. Don't be afraid. First thing, maybe they will do what they want. Ask for more takes. Can I do something different? Just come up with something. So give them ranges so that they are able to say, oh, this guy, I can work with him. We can do a couple of things together.
Okay, we're going to open up the floor for 2 more questions, just for press of time. So we've got those hands risen. I want to take this opportunity to also just say, okay, those 3 hands, just to welcome Mr. Philippe Talavera, Tim Hubschler, who's also here, Mr. Freddy Philander, and Mr. Banana as well. Why I'm highlighting this, because I also have a question for them, specifically to Mr. Philander, because I did a play with him, and I think that would also answer Leslie's question. During rehearsals, he constantly said, learn the Afrikaans in this manner. And I constantly felt, but okay, English is good because, it's okay, but my mother tongue is Afrikaans. And it made me realize that I need to go back and really speak to my mom the type of Afrikaans that I thought I knew versus the one that's on script versus how do I own this Afrikaans in order to make it mine. Then he said, okay, cool, this is a skill now that you need to go study. So he said, okay, cool, but how are we going to make this character more believable that you're actually in a mental asylum? So he said, okay, cool, what body features would you then now walk as? What would you pretend to be like? So he got us the clothes, he got us the space. So I literally shaved my head, like bald, just to show that I'm in this mental asylum. And that for me was the reason, the way he said, because of that, that's why you won the award. And then I realized that it's deeper than just character on surface, because it's character that you need to internalize. David Njabera always said that you eat the words, you eat the character, and then you become the character. So I hope that also answers Leslie's question. Shall we just have that question there?
Good morning. My name is Georgina Lekukela, and I'm an aspiring actress. I wanted to ask, with regards to embodying emotions, or when you have emotional roles, how do you approach it, especially aspects like crying on cue? Because I've heard so many people advise and say, if you're looking for an emotional response, like for example, crying, delve into your past and look for a memory and tap into that. But what if you get so caught up in that emotion that you can't even continue? How do you handle situations like that?
Thank you for that. Can we just have the next question on this side? Okay. Can Mike just be on standby?
Yes, hi, thank you. Thank you. My name is Johan Engelbrecht. I'm also an aspiring actor. I think my question today is more to Adriano as such. I was thinking there, we've got FAN now, we've got the Film Commission, all that thing. I was wondering if it's not, apologies if there is something like this, but if we cannot maybe arrange to have like an amateur association or amateur body or amateur club for actors in Namibia now. Put the producers and directors just to the left. Let's put the talent just now to the right. Because we are, in my humble opinion, I think we're experiencing like a slight boom now, especially with the multi-choice projects. Last year they started, this year they went on again with the Afrikaans projects. You know, I'm privileged to be a part of them, for many of them. And I was thinking, because sometimes the truth of it all is that we, as actors, we do have other sources of income in Namibia. Like, I'm a full-time accountant and tax advisor. You know, I have degrees in that and stuff. You know, I've walked out of tax meetings where where I'm furious with clients, but then I had to jump into a role as a lawyer. You know, that